Skeptics have long pointed out that when reading the Bible, the Hebrew authors clearly display the ancient concept of the earth as a flat, disc-shaped object. How can this be, the skeptic wonders, if, as believers assert, the very words of Scripture were inspired by an omniscient, omnipotent being? Didn't this divine wisdom know that the earth was a sphere? Couldn't these ancient authors have been inspired to write down a correct description of the planet? Biblical apologists, whose business it is to rescue the Bible from such embarrassing observations, have risen to this skeptical challenge. In this video series, we will have opportunity to examine the defenses these apologists have created in order to quiet the sneers of skeptics on the biblical description of the shape of the earth, and to preserve the Bible's divine intellectual integrity. One of the first ways some biblical apologists try to explain away the biblical description of the earth as a flat surface is to object that the ancient writers simply did not have at their disposal an available word from their vocabulary to describe a spherical earth. They did the best they could with the words they did have to choose from. So, for example, and as we'll see later, the book of Isaiah describes the earth as a circle and not as a sphere. This is so, the apologist argues, because the author of Isaiah did not have a comparable word for globe available to him in the Hebrew vocabulary. And yet somehow the apologist expects his audience to believe that while the Hebrews enjoyed the concept of the world as a globe, given to them apparently via divine revelation, their vocabulary failed them in describing this concept accurately. What such apologists fail to realize is that languages are living things. They grow with a culture. If the ancient Hebrews had lacked a word for globe, they would have invented one, or at the bare minimum, substituted the most parallel word in their vocabulary for this novel concept. Within my own generation, words like gay and spam have taken on meanings they didn't have 30 or 40 years ago. They describe new concepts. Additionally, new words to describe new concepts have been born into the English language over the past few years. Pulsar comes immediately to mind. By the same token, the Hebrew language could have evolved a new word to describe this divinely revealed concept of a ball-shaped earth, or it could have co-opted an existing word, one much more appropriate than circle. Again, we'll have opportunity to examine the trouble with this particular apologetic shortly. However, suffice it to say, there was absolutely no reason, if the Hebrews understood the earth to be of spherical shape, why they were forced by restrictions in the vocabulary to have called it a circle, with clear connotations that they were referring to a disc-shaped planet. Apologists seem to think that the notion of roundness was completely foreign to the ancient Hebrews, as though they'd never encountered a round stone before. In similar fashion, some apologists will claim that the biblical authors simply used phenomenological language when writing about the earth and heavens. They will claim that this isn't evidence that the Bible is somehow teaching a flat earth and nothing else. When a biblical writer refers to the ends of the earth, for example, they no more mean a literal edge of the planet than when that same phrase is used today. And of course, they argue, we today know the earth is a sphere, and we use that same sort of phenomenological language, so why can't the same be assumed of the biblical writers? But what these apologists fail to understand is that phrases such as ends of the earth come from the literature which influenced our modern language, and arguably the most influential piece of literature for English was the Christian Bible. The Bible gave us these sayings because they were based not just on what the world looked like, phenomenologically, but upon this Hebrew cosmology which took literally what the authors observed. Standing on the earth and looking round about, phenomenologically, the earth looks flat and disc-shaped. This observation was used in the Bible not merely because it was convenient, but because the Hebrew authors thought it was literally true. And we can know they believed it was literally true, not simply because such wording is used time and again in the Hebrew Scriptures, but because such a cosmology was shared by Israel's neighbors, and because no competing, more scientifically accurate cosmology is found anywhere else in Hebrew literature, art, or artifacts. There is nothing to suggest they believed anything other than that the earth was flat, disc-shaped, and supported by pillars or a foundation. And it is to this Hebrew literature that we will now turn for a more rigorous examination of this ancient biblical cosmology.